welcome. I think most of you know me, but if you don't, my name is Sandia Bayu. I am the Chief Development Officer here at the Council. I've been with the Council quite a few years, and as of right now, celebrating my ninth year anniversary. So thank you for all your participation and everything else. So I'm very happy to be here, as you can see. Very honored to have this discussion today. As most of you know, I'm Latvian by heritage, so it's a really great opportunity for me to have these wonderful speakers. And if you see something shining wearing, I'm always going to bring this up. This is the very Latvian folk costume shawl that is handmade and stitched, and it's very symbolic for the Latvian culture. So today is the day to pull it out of my drawer, because it's definitely not because I need a wool shawl. It's more because of it's all about the looks. So again, good to have you. And we also have ask Peter to wave your hand. Peter, can you wave your hand? Peter is the Honorary Consul of Latvia for state of Texas. So it's a really great participant lineup that we have today. So let me go ahead and start with some introductions, and we'll go from there. I'll start with Ambassador Selga. Ambassador Salga has been in his current role since August 2019. Prior to arriving in Washington, he served as Ambassador of Latvia in People's Republic of China. During his career, he has also been posted as Ambassador in the Arab Republic of Egypt, Ambassador to the League of Arab States, and the Permanent Observer of the Republic of Latvia to the African Union. Ambassador Salga has also led various departments within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He's fluent in Russian, English, and Danish. I don't know where Danish come from. I'm sure there must be a story. And Ambassador Larson specializes now in communications with the legislative and executive branch of the federal government, media relations, and international business and trade at the LS2 group. Charles Larson was appointed by President George W. Bush to be the USA ambassador to Latvia. After his confirmation by the US Senate, Chuck was sworn in by US Secretary Condoleezza Rice, who we have had pleasure to host before, so great full circle here. Prior to his appointment, Chuck served from 2003 to 2007 as Iowa Senator, and from 93 to 2001, he was a member of Iowa House. So great experience, definitely in their career. Let me ask you, how many of you have been to Latvia? Can you raise your hand? How many of you have been to Latvia? How many of you want to go to Latvia? Double, great. I'll be passing around the sign-up sheet at the end of the discussion so we can make sure that it's a go. All good? So I'm gonna go ahead and we'll go from there. I'll start with a couple of questions. Same question actually to both ambassadors. Where does your passion for foreign affairs come from? Maybe Ambassador Salga, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Ambassador Larson.
Well, thank you very much, Sandia, for question. And of course, it's a pleasure to meet such a distinguished audience from great country of Texas. I think probably I have to mention that Sandia herself actually has worked at the Embassy of Latvia in Washington, D.C. I think that's how she started. Also to have a passion for diplomacy and all the things she's doing at the moment right now. She mentioned my Danish. I think the Danish somehow is, you know, in a very, very far away background. So I was studying in Denmark in 1992 after we regained independence in 91. So that, but then I served also at our embassy in Denmark. But I think my wife is much better in Danish than me because she passed more exams than I did. So the background for, or let's say passion for diplomacy, so that after my studies in Denmark, then my, at the moment still my colleague, as a deputy foreign minister, said that it's time to come to the newly established or organized Ministry of, or established Ministry of Foreign Affairs. At that moment, I was still studying and working, finishing my studies at university and working at the Ministry of Agriculture and the later on Ministry of Environmental Protection and Regional Development. So we have long names for the ministries. But I think it was about 26 years ago, so I joined also the Foreign Ministry, so that it's, well, you know, being historian, I think it's a good place to be. So that, of course, and you are always learning something new, and so learning new countries, not so many probably languages, but at least your knowledge base is, you know, enlarged. And just to mention, I think when I moved from DC in 2008, I think Ambassador Chuck was the last one I met. It was one of the last meetings in my career. So he was moving to Latvia and I was moving to Egypt. So that it's, you know, we are more or less connected. But then we missed Ambassador Larson in China. He was visiting American ambassador in Beijing and he didn't come to our reception. So that we will, yes, because, you know, but so that it's, you know, world is very small and we are connected. And I think Ambassador Larson can tell you, I mean, the reason probably because the US ambassador in Latvia, I think his grandfather is from Latvia. So US ambassador in China, I think, so his grandfather is Latvia. So Chuck was very helpful, I mean, to find all the documents, I guess, in archives, or at least his colleagues did this. So that it's really a pleasure, I mean, to work at the foreign ministry, so that it's, you know, I've never worked in, you know, one place for so long time, so that it's, you know, I think I was the first sitting, residing ambassador in Egypt, plus what Sunday mentioned, you know, League of Nations and Arab nations and African Union. I was also accredited to United Arab Emirates and Jordan. So that's something to be first. I mean, and that's, I think, for a small country and young country as us. So that I think that's a really pleasure and also a great honor. I think I will stop here.
Thank you, Ambassador Larson. What is your passion? How do you go from Iowa and your passion for the global affairs?
Well, as a young man, and Māris, thank you for your kind words, and Sandia, thank you for the opportunity to be with you. And Houston, I will say, just to start off with, is one of my favorite cities in the United States. The energy and excitement from the energy sector is amazing. And we work with a number of companies in the Houston area and always love to be in the great state of Texas. At a young age, I lived in Saudi Arabia for a couple of years and then returned to the US. And it was that experience that really opened the doors and my interest in foreign affairs. And we traveled throughout the world during those 2 years living in the kingdom. And then after high school, I studied overseas on the island of Corsica for a year, and then had the opportunity to spend a year in Iraq with the US Army, which was a great experience, different than all the other ones. And then after I returned, I received a call from the White House about going to Latvia. And Latvia is an amazing country, and I see a couple other Latvian names on here. You can always spot them. Uldis is with us tonight, I can see. And what I love. Go ahead, sir.
No, I think we just had an echo, perhaps.
Oh, okay. But what's great about Latvia, it's a smaller country, population approximately 2 million, and 2 to 2.3. But they've always been amazing defenders of democracy, and especially as we look at what's happening with Belarus right now. Latvia is always first to move in from a political perspective, lead from a European Union perspective on the importance of saying what's occurring is wrong. And because Latvia experienced Soviet occupation and the United States never recognized the Soviet occupation of Latvia, we have always had a great bond between our two countries, and that bond continues today. And Latvia continues to be a great spokesperson for democracy, the right to assemble, the right to freedom of speech. And for that reason, Latvia will always be an incredible ally of the United States.
Wow, that's so nicely said. Thank you so much, Ambassador. I'll turn to the Ambassador of Latvia, Māris. What is in the current environment, and the current environment is so different what it was, a year or two ago. What would you say maybe your two top priorities as ambassador are right now in United States?
Well, I have to thank, of course, Ambassador Larson. I mean, he put it so nicely. So our relationship between both countries, I mean, huge and big United States and small but wonderful Latvia. Historically, I think so that's, as he mentioned, you know, it has never been recognized by occupation, has never been recognized by United States. Last year, this year actually, we celebrated the 80th anniversary of the Wells Declaration, actually, who put this U.S. policy in place. But being also, let's say, we are very proud to say that we are strategic partner to United States, and having, you know, support from United States side for many decades. I would say that, you know, the main issue, I mean, is the field of cooperation, it's security, and security. So security, we are, you know, when we joined NATO with the help of United States and support of United States in 2004, we said that, you know, that's NATO is a hard security and European Union, that's a soft security. I mean, now it's probably, you know, blinded so that it's, you know, or binded so together so that it's very difficult to say that, you know, that is a hard, of course, you can imagine that's a military and field, so, but it's still, you know, you have to, you know, be able to defend your hometown. You have to be able to defend your investments, so that it's, you know, it's as I said, it's security above all, so that it's whatever you take. I mean, you have to look through that let's say angle. I think we have a great cooperation in this field with United States. I mean, during this administration, United States are more present in Latvia. Because of the NATO policy, I think we all three Baltics, we have a troop stationed in our countries, so that in our case, the troops are led by Canadians, so that it's a great pleasure, I mean, to be on this continent, I mean, where both countries are giving such a support, I mean, to Latvia and the Baltics in general.
Wow, thank you. Ambassador Larson, I know that you're no longer with the diplomatic service. Can you share just, you know, for us a little bit of what it is that you are currently doing?
I spend about probably 50% of my time on international affairs issues, usually traveling to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia once a month, Latvia once a month. I would like it to be once a month, but every other month, where I'm working on what I would describe as port, real estate development issues, as well as banking. And Latvia is what could best be described as the little Switzerland of Eastern Europe. And for many years, many Russians would park their money in Latvia, which is out of the reach of the Kremlin. It's a NATO nation, part of the EU, a safe place to invest. But it also created some real problems with money laundering and whatnot. And the government of Latvia has done an incredible job over the last number of years working with the United States Treasury to transform the banking sector, which has occurred. And they have adopted new laws that are actually more stringent than the United States' banking laws. And so I work with Treasury on those efforts and trying to open up the banking sector even more for U.S. banks as well. A lot of what we do is in the OFAC and Treasury sector. A lot on Iran sanctions. I think over the last probably 12 to 18 months, we've helped put about 12 different Iranian ships that were illegally, or not only Iranian, but other ships that were illegally transporting petrochemicals on the sanctions list. We've also worked to help people that were wrongly put on the sanctions list come off of it. And everything we do is with our government. We work on one team only, and that's the U.S. government. And we're doing some work right now in Nigeria to stop the genocide against Christians and Shia Muslims, raising awareness and working with Secretary Pompeo on that front. Over the last decade, there have been about 90,000 executed, and we're all familiar with Boko Haram and what's occurring in Nigeria, but it's a tragedy that needs to stop. So that's kind of a short list of some of the issues that we're working on. Every day it's something new and something fun.
I would not say it's a short list at all. You know, all those little items that you mentioned has so many sub-other categories, and so thank you for being such a champion of Latvia and you know, again, supporting us. Just back to Latvia, you did Latvia pick you, or did you pick Latvia? How did that happen?
Actually, the White House picked Latvia and picked me, and so the first phone call I'd gotten was for Qatar, and which would have, with my experience in the Middle East, would have been just fine as well. And then that one, they decided to go with a career person, and I think it was in September of 2007. I got the phone call from the White House, and they said, we have Slovenia, Slovakia, and Latvia available. I have Slovakia and Slovenia filled. Would you have any interest in Latvia? And you know, being the good husband I am, I said, absolutely. Let me check with my wife. But you know, the real answer was, of course. And did a quick check with my wife, and then we started the process. And this was at the tail end of the Bush administration, so there wasn't a lot of time left. So we spent probably 2.5 weeks getting the paperwork completed for the background check, which is an exhaustive process. And then I think we broke a Guinness Book of World Records getting Senate confirmation through, and then landed on the ground and fell in love with Latvia. And if you haven't been to Latvia, it should be a must on your list. The city of Riga is over 800 years old. It's a UNESCO historic city. The people are very, very kind, and we fell in love. If you look at Sandhya, they all look that way. They're all beautiful. Nobody ages. They stay looking like that forever. It's the fountain of youth, I think.
Oh, thank you. I think on that note, we can complete this discussion. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I mean, it's because cold during the winter time, so we do preserve ourselves much better.
That's right. Both of you are very still on a pulse of global affairs, and I'm just going to have two short questions that I'm going to turn to the audience. Again, this is something that I want to engage, you know, with the audience with. And for the audience, again, when you have a question, just raise your hand. That way I can see you and we can unmute it. So start thinking about what questions might be coming your way. I will go to the country of Belarus, and perhaps one of you already mentioned the proximity, of course, Latvia borders Belarus. But thoughts on current situation in Belarus? Ambassador Salga, can I start with you?
Yeah, that's very, I mean, a challenging situation, as Belarus is our neighboring country. And of course, I mean, we have to take into consideration, I mean, the democracy is one part. Of course, we are very, as Ambassador Larson mentioned, you know, democracy-loving nation. We are still learning in many instances, but I think we are doing rather well, be taking into account 50 years of Soviet occupation. In many ways, we can say that Belarus has never left. I mean, the Belarusians has never been, you know, free after the Soviet Union, because President Lukashenko has kept, let's say, some kind of Soviet regime alive, you know, so that, you know, that's funny part is that everything is free of charge, but actually you can't do much with that freedom being in the country. At the same time, of course, it's our neighbor, and we have to be able to trade with it. And of course, there is connections, railway connections. I mean, Belarus is landlocked country. So landlocked country, so that they need our ports as well. So, and there is, let's say, also people-to-people contact, so that it's, you know, there are relatives living on both sides of the border, so that, I mean, you can't just close off borders and say that we don't want to do anything with that country. I mean, you probably have heard, I mean, so that the protests are still going on. My country does not recognize presidential elections, which happened on the 9th of August, I mean, a couple of months ago, so that we do not consider President Lukashenko as a legitimate president of country. There was a very quick and very, let's say, secretive inauguration ceremony for President Lukashenko for the next, which would be the number 6th term, I mean, for him to be in power. So I think in many ways he has managed to do it for a longer period than Vladimir Putin in Russia. So, but of course, we do hope that the Belarusians will be able to solve this issue, and they are not willing actually even themselves to see any interference from outside, neither it's from Europe or maybe also from Russia. So that we are open to, all the channels regarding the diplomatic conversations or talks or people-to-people contacts are open. We are accepting, let's say, Belarusians in Latvia who would like to leave the country because of the regime oppression, and of course we are also in many ways happy that there are Belarusian companies which are leaving Belarus. I mean, and opening offices in Latvia. The same they are doing also in Estonia and Lithuania. You probably know that the Belarusians are actually quite good in IT sector, so that we are happy to have also those, let's say, minds in our country.
Thank you. Ambassador Larson.
Well, first off, I would just compliment Latvia and the European Union on the action they're taking, and it's slowly building as sanctions are under discussion. There are a limited number of tools that we have as policymakers, as nations, to help push a country towards democracy and especially a country that held elections. And as I look around the world, and we work with a number of countries, it all boils down to power and money. And Lukashenko doesn't want to give up the power, doesn't want to give up the money. The Russians don't want to lose him. They don't want democracy to move closer and closer to Russia and threaten the power that Putin and his oligarchs have. And we know what the people of Russia want. We know what the Belarusians want. And they want freedom, and they want democracy, and they want a representative form of government. And so this is typical. Venezuela, Russia, Belarus, they're all about the same in my opinion. And so over time, now we have our presidential elections, so the US may be moving more slowly, but I think you'll start to see the United States begin to weigh in with sanctions, and that can be very, very powerful. And sadly, those sanctions will hurt the people, the Belarusians, but those are our best tools from a diplomatic perspective to help bring about change. And so there are varying steps, and I imagine that the U.S. Will use a model similar to Iran. So I don't think we'll go to the level of what we've done with Iran, but we'll begin to implement some of those, see if we see change coming about or any movement, and then continue to tighten it up.
Yeah. So may I jump in, Sandy, for a short? Yeah. I mean, so I just wanted to support what Ambassador said, that it's, I mean, it took a while, let's say, for the European Union to agree on sanctions because of the different policies within the European Union. But we managed, and also United Kingdom has joined the sanction path for Belarus, the same with the United States. Those are individual sanctions, sanctioning individuals, so that they cannot probably travel to the United States, and let's say, doing business with US is not an easy thing. So, but the Baltics were quite rather quick on the sanctions. So the Baltic countries, we sanctioned the president and his surroundings and all the election committee officials. So that was a ban from the very beginning to enter Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania. So that, you know, just for you, I guess that you all know how the system works in European Union. I mean, in the Schengen area. So if you have been sanctioned in one country, then actually you cannot travel to all of the almost all of the European Union countries, because that one let's say one big area is where you can enter one country and actually leave the Schengen area in another. So entering in, let's say, Greece, you can leave the area, I mean, in Latvia. So that it's sometimes, you know, that's something positive as well, not only negative for, you know, because you can also always find something positive and negative regarding the policies, especially within the European Union.
Yeah, agreed. And someone was actually joining the call today. Had the pleasure to travel not only to Latvia but actually to Belarus. So it's kind of timely that some of us were there about 2 years ago, and we actually did go to the American Embassy, and we did meet with the chief of mission at the time. There was no ambassador, so we have really were ahead of the curve, and we went and we met the people, we saw the nation, and we have to say we came back really with a completely different understanding of Belarus than we had, and many of us just didn't really know what we did not know. So we are very in tune to that and follow the news very, very closely, and certainly wish all the best to citizens of Belarus for the, to the peaceful solution to this situation. I'm gonna turn to the bigger neighbor that we brought up a few times, and this is related to the latest news of Alexei Navalny. I'm just gonna ask you, this is not official government statement, this is just, was this an accident or was this a plan?
Professor Selga?
Go ahead. Whichever. Ambassador Larson, go ahead. Well, we'll get
Sure,
that.
no, I mean, I don't think there's any question that he was poisoned, and the Germans have reached the same conclusion. And this is just right out of the KGB book, and we've seen it time and time again, and it's very, very unfortunate.
I agree.
So we are speaking about Navalny. I think I lost the connection for a moment.
Yes, Navalny.
Well, you know that President Putin was complaining that, of course, Navalny managed to drink, Novichok, the poison himself, and actually, of course, Novichok is almost produced in Latvia. So there was a period when COVID-19 was also, origins were in Latvia, so that Russians are very good with. I think it's, it just continues the path, I mean, which we have seen, I mean, in UK and in other places, so that. So that's attitude, Russian, powers' attitude to opposition, or those who at least could be opposition leaders.
Yeah, agreed. So this, I would ask our participants, do any of you have a question? Would like to go ahead and open for a question from membership? Anybody ready for a question? Peter, why don't you go ahead and start? And Bernard, did I see you have a question as well? So we'll go Bernard next. We'll just have to unmute you. Jahan, can you? Okay.
Yeah, okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so energy security is still physically unresolved in the region. I would say both in terms of the electricity grid and natural gas. Nord Stream 2 is nearly physically complete. The US, the Baltics, and Poland are aligned to stop it. Do you think the US can convince our other allies in Europe to stop it, or will the US have to put on its own super sanctions against those involved, both companies and individuals?
Well, I will say the U.S. has opposed Nord Stream, and we have pushed for energy independence for our Eastern European allies. And I know it's a challenging, expensive solution to achieve, but I don't think we'll see our German allies agree to turn it off. They're going to continue to purchase cheap natural gas from Russia.
I think that in general, I would probably agree with Ambassador Larson, but of course, Navalny's case has changed a little bit attitude also on, let's say, political corridors in Germany, so that they are more willing, let's say, to probably not to close or to shut down the project in general, but at least more willing to look at it, from completely different perspective. Of course, it's challenging for Latvia as well, for Europe in general, because you never know what can happen. Because the idea, of course, is that when you build Nord Stream 2, actually you can close transit via Ukraine, so that there is just one supply line from Russia to Germany, and from Germany, of course, to the different other European countries. I think that it's timely to mention also that we are working with our neighbors, I mean, to create something new and different. Together, we have established 3Cs initiative, where the United States is also supporting us in this case. So that's 3 Baltics and Central and Eastern European countries plus Austria. So that energy is the field where United States are willing to put money in as well. So that we have established the fund, I mean, for those 3Cs initiative. And the United States has pledged, you know, 1 billion, I mean, matching amount, I mean, in order to create this energy independence. So that it's, you know, regarding sanctions, I mean, for Nord Stream 2, I think the United States has put a lot of sanctions already, maybe not the super ones, but for us, I think we are rather supportive, but of course, it's a dual situation because we do understand that by those sanctions, I mean, you are sanctioning, as United States, you are sanctioning also, you know, European Union enterprises. So on the other hand, I mean, sitting at the same table, we are part of the European Union. But we have, and it's very well known, I mean, our attitude, I mean, from Latvian side, that you know very well that we are not happy about Nord Stream 2, so that it's, the same probably applies for Nord Stream 1, but that's already, you know, in operation.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Bernard, I know you had a question. Can anybody else? I have 2 screens because we're quite a rich participant here. Anybody else have a question that I can? So I see Sid. So Bernard, will go to you, and then we'll turn to Sid.
Thanks very much, and thanks for talking to us today. Really appreciate your comments. It's always good to get firsthand knowledge about situations that are occurring overseas. You talked earlier on about how you're in Latvia. You're accepting people from Belarus that are, you know, that are coming across the border. Are you concerned though that if the situation in Belarus really deteriorates sharply with potential violence and potential intervention from Russia, that you can get refugees coming into Latvia that could, you know, be quite overwhelming? I mean, I think Belarus is like what, around 9 million people, and I think Latvia is like 1 to 2 million, I think. So it could be pretty overwhelming if they really started to come across big numbers.
Thank you very much for the question. I mean, I think it's a question which we probably nobody will be able to answer at the moment. I mean, there is a theory that Russia is already doing what they are doing, so that it seems that, you know, President Lukashenko doesn't have a choice. I mean, sooner or later he will have to step down or will have to organize the new elections. Of course, if you look at historically to the Ukrainian situation, the difference is that Belarusian opposition is not pro-European, so that they are anti-Lukashenko, but they are not pro-European, and probably they are pro-Russian in many cases. So that it's, you know, it's let's say if you look from our perspective, it's of course a little bit worrying, but. On the other hand, I think that Belarusian people itself are quite, I mean, they are nice personalities, and I'm not so sure that they will be willing, you know, to move in huge numbers, I mean, to leave their country. So, but that's my personal opinion. I think that somehow they are more attached probably to the homeland and to their daily lives than probably you know, those who are leaving Africa, so that it's, you know, a little bit different thinking, so that it's not so easy to leave your homeland. I mean, even if it's just a neighboring country, maybe because of neighboring country it's easier, and of course we can speak Russian in Latvia, so that it's much easier to adapt themselves. But I'm not so sure that those numbers will be so huge. On the other hand, of course, there is not only Latvia. I mean, there is Lithuania as well, and there is Ukraine. So that for Belarus, I mean, to cross, so that it's. But as I said, I mentioned, I mean, we are very happy. I mean, that those bright minds, I mean, are choosing Latvia or Lithuania or Estonia in this case. I mean, and ready to develop their business. I mean, in our country, so that it's. As Ambassador Larson mentioned at the beginning, we are under 2 million now, so that it's, the numbers are shrinking. So that I think that sooner or later, the influx of you know, the fantastic, the well-educated and clever people will be you know, one thing which we will be looking for as well.
Okay, thank you.
Sid, you had a question. Anybody else has a question that I can be prepared to turn to afterwards? Then I'm looking.
Yes, Ambassador Selga, thanks so much for joining us here. When we went to Belarus with Sandia and the World Affairs Council a couple of years ago, we also went to Kaliningrad. And I was wondering, do Latvian people have a different relationship with people, individuals living in Kaliningrad than they do with the Russian proper?
Well, to be very honest, I have never been in Kaliningrad or Königsberg or Karalauch, as it was, you know, known before. Well, that is a Russian territory. I mean, that is a little bit different. And I think those people who are now living in Kaliningrad, I think they are mostly military personnel and their families. We do have diplomatic presence in Kaliningrad. We have a consulate there, so that they are doing, let's say, their job. I mean, you know, they're providing, you know, visa issuance and the consular part, but also, you know, trying to engage in the let's say, people-to-people exchanges. And Kaliningrad, we were one of those countries actually who were managing to have a direct flights from Latvia to Kaliningrad. Our national air carrier was doing this, so that it's, you know, providing connection to that, let's say, territory of Russia, which is not connected to the mainland. I mean, also sometimes providing, you know, possibility for them to travel outside. Otherwise, they have a train connection which goes from Kaliningrad to Russia via Lithuania. So that is a, you know, historically, you know, after the Second World War, I mean, strange, you know, situation with quite militarized zone in Europe.
Yeah, to Sid's point, again, it was a very interesting opportunity for us to go there, just because we heard when we met with any US representatives and the other government representatives, they were just as curious about the fact that we were going, because they were not allowed to enter. So we were there. So thank you, Sid, for the good question and, you know, great memories. Anybody else? Ray, can you unmute yourself, or do we need help? Thank you.
I got it. Yeah, so I'm just curious. I guess the ambassador is probably the best person to answer, but Sandia could too. For those of us who aren't familiar with Latvia, in comparison to the other neighboring countries, the former Soviet countries, how would you describe the uniqueness, or what, in terms of relative political stability now, compared to some of the very close neighbors? What explains this? What makes it different? And on a different note, for someone who is going to visit Latvia once it's safe to go, what would be your recommendation for seeing to really understand Latvia, and also eating food? Two very different questions. Sorry.
I will probably start, and then we have to ask Ambassador Larson. I mean, because he has experience, you know, the Latvian food. I mean, as with let's say American taste. I mean, and American eyes. So that my country. I mean, he is a great representative of Latvia in the United States. I think we have to make some kind of honorary ambassador at large of Latvia. You know, so that, you know, but. I mean, and sometimes it's very interesting how all those relations are, you know, building up. I think, for example, in Cairo, when as ambassador in Egypt, I had a fantastic colleague from Ukraine. His wife was from Latvia, and she was the best ambassador of Riga, of capital city, I mean, in Egypt. So because she was in love, I mean, with that her hometown. I mean, politically, I think it's a very stable country. I mean, there was a period when we had, let's say, many governments, but I think we have never managed to have so many governments as Italy. So that it's now we have. I mean, interestingly, if you compare with Estonia and Lithuania, I think we have always had a, let's say, center-right government. It has never been a leftist government. You can always, of course, discuss and say whether the policy is good or better or worse. But I think we have managed, and we have, gone so far as we are at the moment. At the moment, actually, we have a prime minister of the government who is actually born in the United States, so that with a very good command of English and understanding how United States are working. So he is from Delaware, so that it's I mean, but living for more than 20 years already in Latvia, back in Latvia. So that it's, I would say that we are at the moment probably, in a better shape politically, let's say, than even our Estonian and Lithuanian colleagues. Lithuanian friends are having elections this weekend. So let's see what will happen. And Estonians, they have managed to have a far-right party in the government, which a little bit, destroys our neighbor in some of the issues. Regarding, what to do and what to see in Latvia, I think it's, it's interesting. When you live in a country, you probably don't notice all those fantastic and wonderful things. I mean, one of the examples is Latvia. Riga has the largest collection of Art Nouveau, Jugendstil buildings, I mean, in Europe. So that you will never have so many, by numbers, I mean, so many buildings as it is, as we have in Riga. I mean, it has one of the, I would probably say the largest, the length, I mean, the lengthiest beach in Europe. I think it's about 500 kilometers. So that's mostly sandy beach, but there are also different kinds as well. The problem, of course, is that it's not so very warm. I mean, even during summertime, but the global warming helps a little bit, so that we have got a little bit longer summers. So that I think this week in Latvia we have by Celsius, I think we have around plus 20 degrees by Celsius. So that it's rather warm. I mean, for October. So that I mean, culturally, of course, we are. Having a lot of things to do. I mean, the same as, I mean, if you go somewhere, in the United States, you have museums, you have theaters, you have everything else that you can enjoy. And the food, that's the interesting part, that I would say that it's a typical German traditional food, because we have to keep warm during the winter time, so that is a lot of meat and potatoes, but that's what my family is using. So Ambassador Larson, of course, was going to restaurants more, so that he knows actually how it looks, with Americanized.
I would say, I mean, it's an amazing country. As you look at the three Baltics, the Soviet Union had more forced migration into Latvia. About a third of the population is Russian. And so 50% of Riga is probably Russian. And what's unique about the United States, when you become an American citizen, you are an American, number one, and maybe of Mexican descent. What's so different about Latvia and all of Europe is this way. You could be third generation Latvian, your father was born there, you were born there, but if your grandfather was Russian, you are Russian. I'm not Latvian, I'm Russian. And so our Latvian friends have to deal with this very delicate balance of their large neighbor to the east that is very important from an economic and trade perspective, but also the political ramifications that they dealt with during the occupation are horrible. The restaurants are incredible. It's a foodie capital that you will love. You'll be amazed. It's affordable. And when I was there in 2008, it was less affordable. It was very expensive for some reason, but now I would describe it as very affordable. I would recommend staying at the Grand Palace Hotel, and it's an amazing boutique hotel that you will fall in love with. And when you write them, tell them that I said they should give you the discount, the same discount I get, and you'll love it. The museums, the Latvian artists are some of the best that I've ever seen, whether that's oil on canvas or stone sculptures. If you go to the National Museum, you will see on the second floor, there's what I describe as the Fort Knox of art. It's like a bank vault with their greatest artists. And the Latvians, like no one I've ever seen, know how to capture that winter sun on snow. And because Latvia doesn't get a lot of sun in the wintertime. And so I would definitely hit the National Museum. Their opera is incredible. And then put on your walking shoes, because Riga is a city that you want to walk and see everything. You can easily rent a car, drive south to Lithuania to see less Russian influence in Lithuania. I would stop at the Hill of Crosses in Lithuania. It's a large, Lithuania, the Catholic movement came up from Poland through Lithuania. And this Hill of Crosses, the KGB would come and bulldoze it down, and then every night these Catholic Lithuanians would get out and plant crosses again. So very, very strong religious state. I was thrilled with Latvia. I'm a Lutheran, and for the first time in my life, I was in a predominantly Lutheran country. Iowa has a lot of Catholics and Methodists, so I felt very at home in Latvia from a church perspective. And then I would also go see the Rundal Palace, which is like Versailles, slightly smaller, but it's being restored. It's absolutely gorgeous. And Latvia had 2 colonies, Trinidad and Tobago, if I'm correct?
Yep.
Yes. So the Latvians go far and wide around the world, and you'll find them everywhere, and they're a beautiful, wonderful, powerful people.
I'm going to chime in quickly on the art. You just brought up something. If you're in Houston, we all know the Rothko Chapel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Do you know Rothko Chapel? Yes, Rothko Chapel. We have heard about it. Raise your hand. Did you know that Rothko was born in Latvia? Yeah, he was born in Latvia, so there's quite a good initiative. We celebrate that connection as the 50th year for Rothko Chapel. So sorry, just this is my time to shine and let you, spread the word.
I just want to say exactly the same concerning Rothko, so that it's, I mean, but just in another, from other aspect. I mean, Riga is fantastic. It has, influence of German, Swedish, Polish, whatever. But of course, it's always advisable, to go outside the capital city. And Rothko is actually, in the second, the museum, his museum is in the second largest city of Latvia, that's Daugavpils, that's the eastern part, where you can, there is I think Latvians are only about 15% inhabitants of that city, but it gives, completely different flavor. And you can feel that not so much Soviet Russian influence, but Russian influence. We have country always has been on the crossroads, between bigger powers. So that, if you wanted to live in Latvia, you had to be able to speak Latvian, Russian, or German. So that now it has changed to English, probably more than let's say, German language. But you have to be able to, the diplomacy is a part, of, let's say, our history. So that you have to be able not only to trade with your neighbors, but also to defend your let's say, your hometown. So that, definitely, you should travel outside the capital city.
Yeah, I see that Alan has a question. Anybody else? I'm going to go ahead and move to Alan.
Okay, I'm sorry I missed the first part, so if the question I asked was covered, I apologize. I'm curious what the reaction in your country was to the poisoning of Alexei Navalny in Russia, if there was much press coverage, if there was any government comments, and how it affected the relationship, if it did, with Russia.
Well, I think we did cover a little bit, so that it's, I would probably say differently, that it's, we discussed Nord Stream 2, so that it's probably this poisoning part was, more a wake-up call for our German friends. which could, play let's say, as a negative event itself, but could play, a positive role maybe in the future. So that it's time, let's say, for some of our Western neighbors probably to take off, those pink glasses. I mean, when they are trying to do business with Russia, so that that country probably hasn't changed so much, and probably because knowing that Putin will be staying in power for quite a long time, probably will not change so much as well. So that the behavior is still the same. I mean, of course, we do condemn this, Navalny poisoning act. So that it's let's hope that this issue could be, also solved, including the international organizations as well.
Ambassador Larson, do you have anything else to add?
Nope. I think Ambassador Selga did a wonderful job on that.
And I'm looking at the time. I know we're coming close to the hour, so I'm going to ask any last question. As I'm flipping through the screens, I do have Leon asking one more question.
So, Ambassador, you know that Mr. Putin has extended his protection to Russian-speaking people all over the world. And you saw how that worked out in Crimea, and it's how right now in Eastern Ukraine. So does that position make you nervous in Latvia?
Well, I think we do feel that pressure, of course, I mean, from our neighboring country. I mean, we have, a couple of events, I mean, starting from 1998, when we could see that Russia is, I mean, in real terms, I mean, using this card of, let's say, Russian-speaking minority or Russian citizens. Of course, nobody knows how many Russian citizens are in Latvia, so that because Russian embassy is not disclosing that fact itself. I mean, but you have to also take into consideration that, situation is changing a little bit. I mean, those Russians living in Latvia, they are citizens of Latvia and they are citizens of the European Union. I mean, they do have a free travel. I mean, they do feel this part of the freedom. I mean, which probably they wouldn't be able, to enjoy being, just living in Russia, just across the border. So in St. Petersburg, in Pskov, or maybe in Moscow. So that it's, this generational, change, I think, is helping us to overcome also this problem which we have with our neighboring country. And well, I think it's also quite opportunities for those Russians. I mean, they do have, living in Latvia, many advantages. I mean, one of advantages is the Russian language knowledge, because it's one of the most spoken languages in Europe. So that my sons, for example, I mean, they do speak, Chinese, Arabic, English much better than Latvian, but they don't speak Russian. And they do feel that, there is a need for that language also living in Latvia as well. So that it's, and Russia has a very, rich culture. So that the point is that, maybe you can find, different ways how to interact. And slowly that political aspect, it will be moving away. So that I think, but there is a, generational issue. So one more generation, and I think we will be in Latvia on the, let's say, on the safe side regarding this issue.
I would just add, I hope that is the case. When I was ambassador, we focused a lot of our attention on the eastern border, the Daugavpils or Mark Rothko area of the country, to try to pull the Russian Latvians closer to the West. And so whether it was investing in the fire department, the schools, we put an elevator in an orphanage so the staff could get the kids in the orphanage that didn't have the ability to walk outside every day in the sun. And these are Latvians and of Russian descent. They don't necessarily look to Russia. They listen to Russian media for sure. That they are a people that if they were in Russia, they really wouldn't be accepted as Russians. But what we wanted to do is ensure that they felt close, that they had economic opportunity, and were not forgotten. As we move further and further away from the wall falling, I mean, we've clearly seen with young people, some of the young Russian Latvians, that they view the Russian flag or Russian citizenship like Guess jeans. It was sexy and interesting and powerful and Putin. And I hope that over time that will change. The Latvian government has a very delicate balance because from a trade perspective, Russia's important. I think as the ambassador said, we're not seeing Latvian young people learn Russian anymore. They're just learning Latvian and English and maybe German. And as I look at it from a trade perspective and a tourism perspective, where a lot of the revenue comes from, it's Russian tourists. And so that would be my only thought and recommendation is it's an important language to learn. And so again, I think the Latvian government's doing a great job, but that's always going to be a threat there that Putin can begin to play games in that far eastern area. It's exactly what he did in Crimea. He'll play games to keep the Latvian government on edge, to keep NATO on edge, in my opinion. But whether it will go beyond that, I'm doubtful because he knows Latvia is a member of NATO, it's a member of the EU, and as a member of NATO, we will step in to defend this great nation.
Thank you so much. I see that we are literally at the end. I'm just going to ask for any closing remarks if you wish. Again, back to you, Ambassador Māris. Any last comments and from Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, I think we trying to stay safe. I mean, and healthy. So that's another wish. Also the same to you in Texas. So that I think I can would like to thank you, Sandy, and your colleagues for organizing this event. And of course, it's really a pleasure and honor to see Ambassador Larson. I mean, at least not in person, but on the screen. So he is great. I mean, just to mention, he was the second and actually the last political appointee, as ambassador. So that in Latvia, so that his predecessor, Catherine Bailey, was the first one. So I think that that was, I mean, for our bilateral relations, Catherine Bailey's ambassadorship and also Chuck Larson's ambassadorship was a very great. I mean, huge. I mean, we had 2 visits of U.S. sitting President George Bush visited Latvia twice. So I think that was, probably one of the golden era. I mean, between both countries. And of course, I would like also to recognize for you, very well, Peter Stragauš. I mean, so he's our, movie producer now. He's now looking for 15 Latvian Oscars. I mean, so that, you have a, celebrity, not only all others, but also Peter. And he's doing, great job. I mean, being our honorary consul in a great state of Texas. And I think all these people is somewhere also our honorary consul. He's joined the event as well, our honorary consul in Massachusetts. So that we are trying, to expand Latvian influence, but I definitely have to think something about Ambassador Larson. I mean, how to make him even, more useful for us than he is. But he is, as he mentioned quite often in Latvia, and being a part of the business community as well. So that thank you very much for your job you have done before and doing now.
You're very, very kind. Thank you. I will always be a very vocal advocate for Latvia. And we need to get you to the great state of Iowa as well, Ambassador, so you can meet our wonderful Latvian community. We have a Latvian church here where every Sunday the service is delivered in Latvian. So very, very rare. Sandhya, thank you very, very much for the opportunity. And as we were first visiting in the beginning, I want to compliment your organization. And my team works with the World Affairs Council around the country. We represent the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and we've been working to schedule different events with Her Royal Highness, and we hope to have one locked in for Houston in the very near future. But I will tell you, as I look at all the groups around the country, this is the most active one I have ever seen. As we're trying to book something, Sanjay's like, no, I'm sorry. We're booked the 28th, the 29th, the 30th. And I said, okay, how about March or June? Can we get a slot then? And so I know how much work it is to bring this rich programming in. And you guys are lucky to have her there helping you. So thank you very, very much.
Again, I want to thank all of you. Again, our members, our supporters. I see some board members, and of course, Marianne and Jahan and others. So thank you for a wonderful evening. It's very, a great moment for me to also to reflect and keep the recognition of our nation president. So yours truly. On that note, I'm going to go and sign off. Then I'm going to send all of you the sign-up sheet for the tour of Latvia that will operate safely when we can. So be expecting that in about 3 minutes. Not really. So anyways, thank you all. We're going to say goodbye. Stay healthy, as all of you said, and look forward to seeing you ideally in person sooner than later. Good night, everybody. Thank
Good night,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.